And with the epicenter of coronavirus, before we know that it started from China and then to Europe and to the US. And right now we have new epicenter that is in Brazil and in Russia. And right now we have Nad Bunnag joining us. Hello,
Hello, happy May Day, by the way.
Yes, and you have story for us with more epicenter of coronavirus.
Yes, so just like how you said earlier that both Russia and Brazil are new epicenters of COVID-19 right now. So let's start with Russia. After we've heard the news of the Russian Prime Minister who has been tested positive for COVID-19 the other day, it already suggests that the situation in Russia is not good at all. The total number of cases in Russia at the moment has already surpassed the 100,000 mark on Thursday. And right now, Russia has become one of the most affected countries in terms of the infections, ranking at number 8 at the moment, which has now surpassed China and Iran, which used to be the epicenters of COVID-19 earlier this year. As of today, there are already 7,933 new cases today, bringing a total to more than 114,000 cases already. So the situation in Russia is not good at all.
Must be quite alarming. And what about the measure in order to cope with the coronavirus in Russia?
The Prime Minister actually told the people to take most seriously the threats of COVID-19. And he also encouraged people to stay at home over the May holiday. So in Russia, there are 2 days they have a holiday, and we usually see the celebrations, which is today, the May the 1st, which is Labor Day. And there's also another celebration on May the 9th, which is a celebration of the Soviet Russia's victory over Germany back in World War II. So for this year, no celebrations for Russia at all because of COVID-19. So that means on today, as well as May the 9th, all Russians have to stay at home, cannot celebrate, and probably they have to celebrate at home instead.
And what about Brazil, Nad? What's the situation there?
In Brazil, the situation is not any different from Russia in terms of the way in terms of the new infections. They're also seeing jumps in terms of the new infections and the new deaths as well. The situation in Brazil is so severe to a point where even statues have to wear masks at the moment. So the current toll for Brazil at the moment is around 85,000 infections. So like I said, similar to Russia, Brazil is already facing with large increases in cases and deaths. And in the past 24 hours, Brazil has already confirmed more than 7,000 new cases today. So the situation in Brazil is not really different from Russia. And there's also a comment from a few experts and researchers based on the number of infections and the whole situation. They felt that the real toll in Brazil would have been much higher, around 12 times higher than the toll at the moment, because Brazil, like in other countries, are lacking in large-scale testing. So as you can see on the screen right now, that Brazil is number 2 in terms of the new infections today. So the situation is not good at all for Brazil. And according to Brazil's health secretary, Brazil is now entering a period of hardship. And it is expected that Brazil will experience the same thing we've been seeing in Italy, Spain, and right now in the United States. So in Russia and Brazil, the situation is really bad in terms of the situation of the COVID-19.
Exactly. It's not uplifting at all to see how epicenter has moved from Asia to Europe to the US and now in Latin America and Russia. So the situation is not quite uplifting, Kun Thepchai, regarding coronavirus. Even though in Thailand it's on steady decline, but we still have to be quite vigilant with the situation in other countries as well.
In Russia, the shutdown is posing one particular concern for many people. As we all know that Russians have the reputation for hard drinking, right? Russians drink a lot, the vodka, right? But the level of alcoholism in Russia, however, has been on the wane in the past many years because of the anti-drinking campaign, which has been very successful. But because of the stress being caused by the shutdown, people are quite worried that Russians will go back to the old habits again and start drinking a lot.
Start drinking at home, right? And that's what I believe they're going to do during the social distancing.
That's true. I think it's not happening only in Russia. I think it's the same thing is happening in most other societies too. When people get confined to their homes, have not many things to do, then there's a tendency for people to go for what they are used to. That's drinking. Yeah.
So speaking of the lockdown, Russia has already extended a lockdown for another 2 weeks. And in Moscow, they also extended a lockdown to the 11th of May. But in Brazil, well, speaking of both countries, they might be similar in terms of the new infections and the rise, but the way they handle the situation in two countries are completely two different stories. Russia, you might be seeing that the government is warning the citizens to be careful and to stay at home so that you can protect yourself from the virus. But in Brazil, it's quite different, especially with the way President Jair Bolsonaro actually appeared in front of the public. The way he responded to the pandemic was not really nice at all. So there was like a news story about him saying when someone asked him about the rise of deaths, he said, "So what?" And that is already shocking for even the readers like us already, or even like the other situation where he appeared in some sort of protest or like some sort of public gathering without wearing a mask and coughing in front of so many people. So not a really good example here. So you can see that there's a completely different story between Russia and Brazil in terms of how they appear in front of the public.
Yeah.
Gesture
of leaders are really important because we can see how leader of Italy, Spain handle it in the very beginning, or even President Trump during the beginning, and they have to change after the outbreak is getting more and more serious. But the statue in Brazil, Nat, is quite significant symbol, isn't it?
Story.
Yes.
So even like the statues have to protect themselves from COVID-19. So I think that's a really good way to warn the citizens of the threats of COVID-19. So if people cannot rely on the government officials or even the president, at least statues are everywhere. So even statues are wearing masks. So you should wear a mask as well.
Yeah.